The NHL trade deadline is passed, and the Canadiens added nothing. They did not add a single player, a single pick. They did not trade anybody away. They did nothing. They stood pat. They are currently in a playoff spot, but will that last from now until the end of the season? It's 2 years in a row now where the Canadiens do nothing at the trade deadline. Will it cost them this season? We'll break that down and much more coming up on this episode of Answer the Call with Peter Vryonis. Welcome, everybody, to Answer the Call with Peter Vryonis. I hope you all enjoyed the deadline or made the most of it because it wasn't too eventful. There were a couple of trades at the last second, and it did bleed into the 4 o'clock hour, but nothing really to write home about. If you did enjoy the coverage leading into Friday, 3 p.m., make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're probably going to shift gears tomorrow to some World Baseball Classic, maybe even some National Football League, some moves going down on that front. But if you are enjoying the content, if you are enjoying Answer the Call with Peter Vryonis, make sure to hit that subscribe button because it's daily, it's fast, and it keeps you up to date on everything that you need to know in the world of sports. But again, like we have been focusing in our first few videos here on the channel, it's going to be hockey related, and it's going to be Montreal Canadiens related because they did nothing yet again for the second trade deadline in a row. Now, Kent Hughes is meeting with the media as of recording of this video. So he's meeting with the media right now at around 4:30-ish, 4:45 p.m. Eastern time. And Ken Hughes confirms they were in discussions on some players that went to the wire that he believes he could circle back on in the summer. So I saw some speculation online that may be Nazem Kadri. However, I find that very hard to believe. Now, knowing that Nazem Kadri was traded to the Colorado Avalanche, going back to the team that he won a cup with. And if you were already scared of the Avalanche, well, they got even scarier now. And maybe if you look at the landscape of the National Hockey League, maybe it wasn't the right time for the Canadiens to make those panic decisions or to make those panic moves. However, I said it in a previous video, and I've said it on air on TSN 690 and in my time over there. I've said that the Montreal Canadiens need to reward their players for how well they've played here in the first 60 games of the season. And Kent Hughes, for the second deadline in a row, hasn't done that. Now, you could say maybe he rewarded his guys a year ago by not trading anybody away and keeping the core together, trusting his captain and taking him at his word that he was going to carry them to the playoffs, and he did that. But you're in a vastly different situation this year than you were a year ago. You're not chasing a playoff spot anymore. You don't have a 2% chance to make the playoffs. You have around an 80% chance to make the playoffs. So instead of making a move, instead of adding, or instead of even getting rid of Patrick Laine and alternatively just having him rot on the bench and not play, even though he seems to be healthy, you didn't even do that. And usually the Canadiens and usually Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon do right by their players, but they didn't even do right by Patrick Laine, who, if I remember correctly, was a big reason as to why they made the playoffs a year ago. So not only do the Canadiens not bring anybody in, they don't ship the guy out that they said they don't have room for, and they say there's not a fit for. I find that pretty puzzling and, quite frankly, pretty disappointing as well. I would be disappointed if I was Laine, and I'd be disappointed if I'm a member of the Montreal Canadiens right now at around 5 p.m. on Friday, because my team didn't do anything to get better, even though there are some noticeable holes. Now, the asking prices were ridiculous. We saw Nicolas Roy get traded from the Toronto Maple Leafs to the Vegas Golden Knights, and a first-round pick was included in there. That's absurd. That's absurd. I would never pay that. And honestly, some people might be glad that Kent Hughes didn't succumb to the pressure and didn't try to make a trade even though nothing was necessarily there. However, I think you do owe it to the group to make at least a minor addition. Now, even minor additions, you're not seeing anybody get traded away for less than, second or third round pick. So you would have had to part ways with one of those or one of your B-level prospects. But I'm okay with that because I think this group deserves an opportunity to compete in the Eastern Conference. And as currently constructed as they are, I don't see them being able to compete now. Everyone around them got better. Detroit got better. Buffalo got better. Tampa Bay even got better by adding Corey Perry here at the deadline. Now, Florida got worse. Toronto got worse. They sold off some assets, and that was expected. You were not really holding your breath for those teams to make additions, more so subtractions, and that's what they did. But now taking a look at Montreal, I can't say that they've taken a step back, but they've remained status quo and haven't added for the second year in a row. And Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon, in their entire tenure here, have been incredibly patient with how they manage the Montreal Canadiens. But there is going to come a time when they have to take that big home run cut, and they haven't done it yet. Now, you could argue this year wasn't the year to do that. But I take a look at the Eastern Conference, wide open. Wide open. And I know some teams got better, but there's no clear-cut favorite apart from Tampa Bay that if I'm looking at, I'm scared of. I'm scared of Tampa Bay, but maybe another team does your dirty work for you. There's a legitimate chance for any playoff team in the East to get to the Stanley Cup final. Now, who knows what happens when you get there? You probably match up with Colorado or Minnesota or Dallas or the Vegas Golden Knights, and you probably lose when you get into that situation. But just getting there for a young team like Buffalo, like Detroit, like Montreal, there is something to be said about the experience that you gain along the way. And right now, I don't see this Montreal Canadiens team, this iteration of the team, being able to compete now in the Eastern Conference. I'm not going to say that other teams got significantly better, but for the most part, they improved. And while you were maybe a top 3 team, top 4 team in the East before the deadline for Montreal's side of things, you're now probably a top 5 or top 6 team, which is not bad, but you wanted to take a step forward after a pretty encouraging 2024-2025. I think you're primed to do the exact same thing. Maybe you go 6 games or 7 games in the first round as opposed to 5. Maybe you're a little bit more competitive in that opening round. But can they really beat Buffalo in a 7-game series now, which is the team that they might match up with? Can they beat Detroit, team that they've struggled against this season? Can they beat Tampa Bay? I don't know. I really don't know. So it's murky. It's a little bit murky right now for Montreal. And I don't really think they did anything to clarify their current situation. So no moves. Status quo for Kent Hughes. And my question is the honeymoon phase over? He could do no wrong a couple of years ago. Every move that he was making, he was 10 steps ahead of everybody. Oh, are you a dummy? Did you just deal with Kent Hughes? How could you do such a thing? He probably just fleeced you. He probably just took advantage of your entire franchise. Now, I'm not really getting that same rhetoric this time around. I'm seeing that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon a little bit too cautious. Maybe they're afraid to take that big swing. Will they ever take that big swing? Maybe the time wasn't now. Maybe the time wasn't this deadline. But there will come a time when the Montreal Canadiens need to take that home run swing and stop going for singles. Stop going for sacrifice flies. Stop trying to ground out and move the runner over to third base. Sorry for all the baseball analogies, but that's where the Canadiens are at right now. That's the cautious, kind of waited out game that they have been playing for the entire Hughes and Gordon tenure. And there will come a time when there's a chance to progress, and I'm worried on whether or not they will make that move. Whether they will have the wherewithal and, quite frankly, the cojones to go out there and make that move. Because they haven't had it yet. And they haven't been forced to. But there was a real opportunity here this year to get better. It would have been costly, and you could see that he's circling back. You know, he might circle back on some things in the summer. Now, is your trade deadline acquisition, is it Patrick Laine? Like, now he's staying with the Canadiens. We know that. This is a tweet in French, but let me translate it for you. So if Patrick Laine stays with the Canadiens, I'm excited to see how Martin St. Louis will insert him in the lineup if he does. And if he does insert him into the lineup, where does Patrick Laine fit? And Who does he fill in for? I don't know. We haven't seen Alex Texier for a couple of games now after signing that 2-year extension, which, fans which fans were praising Hughes and Gorton for right away, saying, "Oh wow, what a great move! Just signed him under market value, and now he's a healthy scratch." So I've been a very big fan of what Hughes and Gorton have done thus far in their Canadiens tenure. But it's a legitimate question to be had now. Is the honeymoon period over? So if you're trying to sell me on Patrick Laine being the deadline acquisition, that's fine. But is he actually going to play? How much does he play? Is it 7 minutes a game with limited power play time? Does Martin St. Louis even trust him to play him 5-on-5? I don't know what's going on here. We'll find out tonight when the Habs take on the Ducks, who are very good at home. And then quick turnaround, Habs will take on the Kings on Saturday night. And they don't do very well in LA. So there's a legitimate chance here that the Canadiens could drop 2 games in a row. And maybe the response from the locker room after doing nothing at the deadline, maybe it won't be too positive. Maybe they won't really receive the message from Martin St. Louis and Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon all that well. And I wouldn't blame them. If I was a player for the Canadiens right now, I'd be pissed off. We have noticeable holes. We struggle to hold a lead, struggle to win close games. Yet you try to sell me on the fact that we're good. We don't have to add anything. Just trust in what we got. Meanwhile, you have your 6 defensemen playing routinely 8-9 minutes a night. I find that a very, very tough sell. Very tough sell. And if I'm Nick Suzuki especially, I'm pissed off. I mean, he said he didn't have a conversation with Ken Hughes this time around. But he went into his office last year and said, "Don't trade anybody. Trust me. They're going to get on my back and we're going to get to the playoffs." And that was with a 2% chance. The Canadiens could have sold there, but they didn't. They trusted their captain. Now this time around, nothing. Nothing. I don't know what the conversations were like internally. And again, Kent Hughes saying that he might circle back to some things on the summer. But as a fan of the Canadiens, I would not be happy at the moment. As a player of the Montreal Canadiens, I would not be happy either. And there was an opportunity here to get better, and they did not do that. They stood pat, which is fine, but don't try to sell it to me like Patrick Laine is a deadline acquisition. Heard some media members in Montreal trying to sell it that Alex Texier was like a deadline acquisition. Philip Deneau was a deadline acquisition. Don't do that. Don't do that. Those guys were not deadline acquisitions. The team has largely been the same for the better part of months now, dating back to, November, December. It's been a while now that we know what this team is and what they're all about. So don't try to sell me on the fact that those were deadline acquisitions. Your team has remained the same for months. And we'll see. Can they develop some sort of momentum from now until the final 22 games of the season and be competitive in the playoffs? I'm not so sure. If they were to make a couple of moves, if they were to bring some added life into this locker room, I would say then maybe, yeah. Maybe there's a jolt there. Maybe there's some extra momentum that you can seize and take forward with you. But right now, at this moment, they're not good enough to compete. And I don't know if they would have been good enough had they gotten Zach Whitecloud or Rasmus Ristolainen or, Colton Parayko. I don't know if they would have been significantly better to the point where they're a shoo-in for the Stanley Cup final, but you give yourself a better chance. And those are not solutions for just 1 year when we're talking about Ristolainen, Whitecloud, and Parayko. Those are multi-year solutions. Parayko, it's 4 years. Whitecloud, it's 3 years. And Ristolainen, it's 2 years. So you don't just have those guys for one season and you're going all in. You're building. You're building for the next couple of seasons and extending that window to get better. But the Canadiens didn't explore that avenue. And here we are. Same team that we've seen for the better part of months now. And I'm not so sure that they're going to be able to compete in the East. I hope they make the playoffs. What if they falter? Every other team around them made some move. The Canadiens didn't. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm a little surprised the Canadians didn't do anything. A little disappointed, quite frankly. I thought we were setting ourselves up for a pretty good deadline. It wasn't meant to be. A couple of decent moves went down. My favorite is probably the John Carlson move going to Anaheim. I mean, that was really exciting. And that's a team, kind of like the Canadians. They're a young squad. Didn't have much expectation coming into the year. However, that's a GM that is rewarding his team, his young team, that still may not go anywhere, but he's rewarding them for a great first 60 games of the year. Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon take the cautious approach, yet again, which they've done their entire Canadiens tenure. And I'm wondering, answer in the comments section down below, is the honeymoon period over? I'm not quite there yet. I still love what they're doing. But there will come a time when they need to take that big swing. And are they the ones to do it? We'll find out. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. This was Answer the Call with Peter Vryonis.